And our first honoree is Dr. Hanan Ashrawi. Scholar, writer, teacher, activist, elected representative, spokesperson, peacemaker. Hanan Ashrawi is all these things and more. It was on this campus that Dr. Ashrawi began to develop her multiple persona and to understand her mission in the support of the Palestinian people and the cause of peace. Dr. Hanan Ashrawi received her bachelor and master's degrees in literature in the Department of English at the American University of Beirut. After earning her PhD in medieval and comparative literature from the University of Virginia, Dr. Ashrawi returned to her homeland in 1973 to establish the Department of English at Beirut University on the West Bank. Just as the university was transforming itself from a 2-year college to a 4-year institution of higher learning. She served as chair of that department from 1973 to 1978, and again from 1981 through 1984. And from 1986 to 1990, she served the university as Dean of the Faculty of Arts. She remained a faculty member at Beirut University until 1995, publishing numerous poems, short stories, and papers and articles on Palestinian culture, literature, politics, all the while editing the Anthology of Palestinian Literature. In the field of literature, she is the author of the Modern Palestinian Short Story, Contemporary Palestinian Literature Under Occupation, Contemporary Palestinian Poetry and Fiction, and Literary Translation Theory and Practice. From 1991 through 1993, she served as the official spokesperson of the Palestinian delegation to the Middle East peace process and a member of the Leadership and Guidance Committee and Executive Committee of the delegation. In 1996, she finally agreed to join the Palestinian Authority as Minister of Higher Education and Research, but she resigned in 1998 in protest against corruption and the handling of the peace talks. Hanan Ashrawi is Secretary General of the Palestinian Initiative for the Promotion of Global Dialogue and Democracy, known by its Arabic acronym Miftah, which she founded in 1998. It is devoted to the promotion of democracy, good governance, and transparency in Palestinian politics, as well as to provide analysis of contemporary Palestinian affairs in the context of the enduring conflict with Israel. More recently, in 2002, she was awarded the Olaf Palme Prize, in 2003, the Sydney Peace Prize, and in 2005, the Mahatma Gandhi International Award for Peace and Reconciliation. Hanan Ashrawi continues to be recognized in the areas of women's issues, peacemaking, education, human rights, international affairs, and Palestinian culture. When we relaunched honorary degrees at AUB 5 years ago, we stipulated that active politicians are not eligible. We feared that politicians craving publicity to promote their careers or burnish their legitimacy might try to exploit this occasion. Better not to open that door, we believed. But with Hanan Ashrawi, we have deliberately blurred that distinction, because she has been a politician in only the loosest sense of the word, and almost by accident, the accident of being Palestinian. In her own words, when returning to the occupied territories and to Beirut University after her studies in the U.S., she recollected, and I quote, "One of the most painful aspects, and I always said that no academic has ever had that responsibility, was to cradle the head of a dying student. I've had to do that. I've had to protect students. I carried wounded students in my car, went through checkpoints and tear gas and bullets to take them to hospitals. So in a sense, you merge the academic, the political, the personal, the human, the struggle all together. And you don't fragment yourself as a human being or divide your roles. You're all these things together. You're a dean, a teacher, a mother, maybe even a priest, if you will, at the end of the day. Hanan Ashrawi, welcome back to AUB.
Thank you very much. That was very touching, John. It's wonderful to be here again. What a mix of nostalgia and anticipation. Thank you all for being here. Chairperson and members of the Board of Trustees, President John Waterbury, members of the faculty and administration, fellow honorees, friends and colleagues. At times like these, one is expected to express gratitude and humility for being granted this special recognition and for sharing it with such distinguished company. And I'm truly grateful and humbled. The nature of this recognition is of particular significance as it embodies a meaningful reciprocity with the university that bears a major responsibility for getting me to this point in the first place. From coffee and conversations at the milk bar, to spontaneous exhortations at the speaker's corner, to protest marches through Bliss Street, to thoughtful seminars in Fisk Hall, to the blessed calm of the library, I have had the privilege and provocation of a unique educational and life experience at AUB. For this, I am truly grateful, and I consider the recognition mutual. Thus, the resumption of the granting of honoris causa degrees does not just represent honoring the awardees, but essentially signals to the world that AUB, like Lebanon, has not been defeated by adversity, or deflected by injustice, or diminished by pain. Rather, like the Mediterranean, it remains confidently assured of its continuity at the center of the inhabited world. Nothing, dear friends, can match the power of an undefeated human spirit, simultaneously subject to the fragility and vulnerability of the human condition, yet tenaciously persistent in its struggle to engage and transform reality as a source of value and a force for change. I have witnessed and lived through the best and the worst of such a condition, for I come to you from Palestine, a tortured land, besieged, violated, traumatized, wounded in its soul, longing for relief, crying out for justice, yearning for peace. While the Israeli military occupation attempts to steal the land, culture, history, identity, and overall human rights of the Palestinians, there are those who have appointed themselves sole arbiters of thought and conscience in Palestine, thereby confiscating other forms of freedom and human identity in a different battle over the soul of Palestine. The complex displacement-replacement paradigm that began its active manifestation in 1948 persists today in various forms of oppression: the horrific wall of separation and annexation, racist settlements devouring the land and its resources, military incursions resulting in abductions, assassinations, house demolitions, and hundreds of checkpoints with the express purpose of humiliation and dehumanization. And Jerusalem, the eternal city at the heart of Palestine, remains captive, surrounded by chains of settlements, checkpoints, and walls, undergoing slow strangulation and ethnic cleansing. Within this narrative of denial, exclusion, and victimization, Palestinian existence has found expression in dual motivations: the urge or drive to return, with a momentum of motion that constitutes a most elemental validation, homecoming, the return of the refugees, and the will, determination to endure, to remain obstinate in withstanding all attempts at displacement and expulsion. Uniting both the victims of exile and those of occupation is the quest for historical redemption, for that elusive peace that can lay claim to justice and permanence. For such a resolution to materialize, it is imperative that we undergo a healing process to mend the self-inflicted wounds of internal strife and mutual negation, and to restore to our cause its integrity and luminosity. And I'm sure in Lebanon you're all familiar with that. The context of this process remains firmly enshrined in the basic values of global governance and the rule of law, universal human rights and human security, as well as historical affirmation of culture and identity, of course within the human condition as a whole. Dear friends, in Palestine, as in Lebanon and other stricken lands, when the public space becomes constricted and opaque, and the discourse of deception prevails, and when power constructs supersede human and humane considerations, we need the courage to intervene before inaction becomes complicity and acquiescence turns to defeat. That is why we are assembled here today, not only to celebrate a creative and compassionate voice, but also to engage in a collective act of provocation. For we are required to dismantle not only illegal settlements, but also coercive constructs of mental and physical intimidation. To challenge not only the confines of prison cells and checkpoints, but also the blockade of ignorance and abuse. To lift not only the siege of the land, but also of absolutist ideology and complacency. Unless we agitate, dear friends, we will not be able to provide our children and grandchildren, now that I'm a grandmother and a proud one, and grandchildren, with that rare gift of a future of tolerance and tranquility. Our shared experience today is a modest contribution to the expansiveness and transparency of our joint space. No venue is more appropriate for such an endeavor than this institution, a university that for generations has dedicated itself to the overall integrity and dignity of human existence, fulfilling this grand design with quiet persistence and humility. Like Jerusalem, like Lebanon, AUB is a place much larger than itself, and the world is that much better for it. Thank you for your patience and invitation.